And we're live, Pop Culture Podcast, episode 60. Tom, it's our first ever episode 60.
I heard that somewhere before.
Exciting. Yeah, I stole that from you. Of course, Tom says that on his Off the Rails podcast, but I figured I'd borrow it just for fun time. Because that is our first ever episode 60. So this week we're joined by the Femme Fatales, the women of Australian horror. Very excited to have you. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Why don't we, before we get into any of the stories, why don't we just do quick introductions? We'll start with Grace, and then we'll kind of go maybe clockwise. Grace, introduce yourself.
From me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I am an actress. I'm a model. I'm a singer. I'm a dancer. So I came from China, but I've been living here for more than 13 years. So since I was young, I started to do a lot of performance. And I've been performing since I was young until now. And then I also did a little bit acting in the advertisements in China. Since I came to Australia, I start to do more performances. So I also perform in the films. I act in short films, feature films, advertisements, and documentaries. So everything. I'm also a dancer. So in my spare time, I do a lot of daily dance, and I'm a singer as well. So I'm busy all the time. So that's me. Yeah. So I made a lot of friends in Australia. So, but most of them are the actors and the filmmakers and all. They're all doing the art things. So we communicate a lot in Australia, all about the arts. Yeah.
Excellent.
Do you have any questions to ask me?
Did you have something, Tom?
No.
Chomping at the bit for a question there. Vixie, hello, fashionably late.
Hello, how are you?
Vixie's no stranger to us. She's been on the show a few times.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
Emma,
Hi.
let's pass this down to Emma. Emma, introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. I think I'm surrounded by performers and creators of horror, whereas I'm more of a commentator in general on film, really. But I seem to have a specialty in horror that takes my interest. So I've written a few books. I'm preparing a book on Bride of Frankenstein, which you can see behind me. I'm in between their relationship in this broadcast, and written a book on David Cronenberg's The Fly, a book on monster movies, do quite a few DVD commentaries, so tends to be a thing these days with the new DVD releases, and I'm lucky to work for some great boutique labels, mainly in the US and in the UK. Produce essays for them, radio shows, all that sort of thing. So I'm often talking and writing about horror films.
Very cool. Can you name any of the labels that you work for? Any of the distributors?
Yep. In the US, I work for Kino Lorber.
Oh, really?
And in the UK, Second Sight is one of the labels. Arrow, Eureka, Indicator. Very good labels. They do these beautiful releases, so it's quite an honor to be able to do that. And I'm all for physical media. Go physical media.
Yeah, let's keep going as long as we can. Sarah, what about you? Let's get an introduction.
What's that me? Great. Hi, my name is Sarah Lamberg. I grew up in Finland, and I've been in Australia now for about 12 years. And in these 12 years, I've done a little bit. I've released a feature film called Innuendo, which is available also in the US at the Amazon. So that's a psychological thriller. Goes for 100 minutes, talks about two twin sisters. And when you have two twins, always there's a crazy one, isn't there? And also I played the lead in Mark Bacaitis' film Cult Girls, which is more of a horror film. And I started off as an actor when I was about 7 years old, and I did a degree in theatre in UK before coming to Australia. So yeah, I still mix and match my time with acting and directing, writing, producing. I love making my own films because it gives me creative control, and I get to. I've always had a wild imagination, I suppose, and to be able to create that as films is amazing, and not something that I ever imagined would be possible for someone like myself. But yeah, just I guess over the years I picked up skills. I studied a little bit of this and a little bit of that in terms of behind the scenes work, camera work, radio work, TV work, film work, acting, and yeah, then just put it all together in independent film. And yeah, I just hope to be making more and more films in the future and share it with people like yourselves. And it's really great to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Pass it over to Anastasia. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes, I unmuted myself because I could hear a little bit of feedback. So now I'm back in. Hello. I've been in doing, I guess, film stuff for a little bit compared to everyone else. Everyone's more extensive. I sort of started doing sort of musical stuff in, I guess, my childhood, because I did music therapy and like ballet and stuff like that to help me with my development. And I just sort of loved it. And I would do singing in primary school and high school and like all those like little productions. And it all sort of eventually, I just kept getting cast in like all the little extra bits, and like I was never able to get like in a full role. I was so close in 2013, and then that was the year I just gave up because they ended up cancelling the production of The Wizard of Oz, so which I managed to scare the pants off everyone. The Wicked Witch of the West. So yeah, and I also cancelled drama going into that year as well. So my mum found me an alternative screen acting course. So 2012 and 13 was screen acting, and then graduating that 2013, I started my film degree from the University of Canberra in 2014, finished that 2016, and then I started doing 2 degrees in theatre and drama at the same time from 17. And I finished my Deakin drama one in 2019, and I've got some writing units left over from my 20 months, hopefully finishing that this year. But yeah, so I've gone like theatre and film, behind the camera, in front of the camera, everything in between. It's pretty solid, I guess.
Yeah, sounds very sounds amazing. Vixie, what have you been up to?
I've been up to a lot of things. A bit like Anastasia, I have had a pretty like a huge academic kind of career. I started actually doing IT and then arts, literature. So major in literature and cultural studies with a minor in philosophy. I then went to SAE and I've done a production of a film production bachelor. And then I'm continuing that with a master's in creative industries. And so for that course, I'm currently putting together a collection of my abstract artworks, which I'm going to be trying to put together a gallery showing for. And these artworks featured in a short film that I made called The Price of Art. Oh yeah, Anastasia, you were part of that, weren't you? Oh, sorry, you're muted, dear.
Yeah, I remember being a part of that. Like Gillian was in there, and like it was at the Mr. Boogeyman bar, and you had some tall guy with the long brown hair. He was like a dealer.
yeah. Benjamin Stace. He was acting in that. And I've of course been making like quite a few films with David Black. One of my favorite ones is The Quest of Questions, which is on his YouTube channel. And I've made one with the Sydney SAE crew, which did win some awards with Indie Fest. Called It was called Chained to Traditions. And I've recently been filming one with Dia Taylor, who is making the short film Jet.
It's a feature.
What?
Jet's a feature.
Oh, it's a feature.
It's because I see it everywhere. Jet feature film.
Oh yes, she is making a big feature. Jet. Yeah. So it's been so crazy and busy. And what else have I been doing? Yes, I think that's mostly what I've been up to. Yes.
So
And
Tom,
of course, this podcast.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Tom, have you done half as much as any of these ladies have done? Because I know I have. It's crazy.
No.
I feel like a slacker. I really do. I feel like a slacker.
Oh, I just remembered. I've also done I'm working on doing a fantasy film. Like I'm starting to write the script for it.
Nice.
Nice, yeah. David Black has been a guest numerous times here. Very, very unique guy. Very unique filmmaker. Tom, you want to get on the stories this week?
Sure.
All right, you know what time it is. All right, get that out of here. Tom,
Yeah.
what's going on with Yeezy?
Well, this week Kanye figured out. I think you have to mute Vixie there. There you go. Okay. This week Kanye wrote a poem, and he figured out that he's been dead this whole time, and now he's pissed off at everybody else for not telling him he was dead.
That's what happens when you have that much money.
You ever just think, I have to be dead?
Yeah, that's what happens when you have so much money.
And then your first thought is, who should I be mad at?
Pete Davidson.
Not, I'm dead. Just, I got to be mad at someone.
Pete Davidson, of course.
Find out how you died.
We talked about this last week, where Pete Davidson is going to space with Jeff Bezos.
Yep.
This is the second time Jeff Bezos is going to space.
Yeah, but Pete Davidson just wants a quiet night, not having to look over his shoulder for Kanye to kill him.
He's to go to space just to get a good night's sleep.
Just to get a wink.
Yeah, like I said, though, Pete Davidson should be looking over his shoulder because Kanye's got the money to make him disappear, and nobody will ever find him.
Pete Davidson's got the money for like those Saddam Hussein stunt doubles he's got to keep around him.
Right. Yeah. So, do you guys talk about Kanye over in Australia? Is it a big thing in the news as much as it is here?
Mm.
Not really.
No.
No, but there's a lot of, once you read enough articles, your entire newsfeed gets flooded with them.
Oh yeah, that's Facebook.
Yeah.
That's
It's happening with like Google Chrome as well, because I just read one and it's like multiple.
Well, they listen to you too. Like if you have a conversation with a friend, like, hey, I really like tomatoes. You'll get ads for tomatoes for for weeks. It's crazy.
It's great when I'm trying to find something to cook, except when it decides to send me 50 million of the same thing just cooked.
Yeah, Tom and I were talking about adult toys the other day, and that's all that I get on my newsfeed now.
The only reason I did that is because I thought they'd ship them off mine to yours.
Yeah.
Now we both just get them.
Nope. So we were talking about this a little bit before we went on air, but Tom and I live in Wisconsin. And in Wisconsin, like I said, we're known for three things. We're known for beer, really good beer, cheese, and wacky murderers that like to dismember their victims. And it seems like everybody in Wisconsin either knows somebody that was dismembered or knows somebody who dismembered somebody. I that's a working theory that I have. I was just at the tattoo shop last night, and I was talking to the owner, Chris, the owner of the tattoo shop, and he said, yeah, I know this guy that got dismembered. He owned another tattoo shop, and he was dismembered because there was this battle going on between Civil War memorabilia collectors, and one guy wanted his collection of Civil War memorabilia, so he killed him and dismembered him. Tom, do you know anybody that was dismembered? You have to. You have to, or somebody that did dismembering.
We have 3 missing children in our family that all died in the same height chair at 1 year old.
See,
But
See?
I do have my theory
you'd
about.
think
you heard
after
about
2 they would say, "Let's get rid of the high chair."
he was best friends with the judge. It's really
Yeah.
weird. But
think-
you heard about Wisconsin nice or Midwestern nice? We're always nice to everybody, even the crazy guy at the end of the bar, because he might just chop you up later.
Mhm. Yeah, we've had Ed Gein. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ed Gein.
Very familiar.
Yep, we've had him. Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sure you've got to be familiar with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Was it John Wayne Gacy was the one? Was he from Wisconsin?
Close. He was from Chicago, which is about
Okay.
90 miles. 90
We got
miles.
the making
south
a
of-
murderer guy.
Yeah. So here, this,
Okay.
Oh,
Taylor
Anastasia,
Schaub-
you were holding on to something there. I want to make sure you get.
So Renee Zellweger is portraying Pam, a lady called Pam, who's Midwestern from Wisconsin, and she completely.
Yeah.
She just chameleon, right?
There's something in the water.
And there's a Netflix series about it, and it's completely trippy because the lady who started this Netflix series about it, she was just like, she looked at Renee Zellweger and all she could see was the lady Pam, who just killed her sister or relative, and then they blamed the sister's husband for it, and it was all like, huh? It's a lot.
Yeah, so this woman, Wisconsin woman, 24, choked her lover to death during sex while high on drugs, used a bread knife to dismember him, then dumped his head and genitals in a bucket and his legs in a crock pot.
Wow.
So
Good stuff with the corpse afterwards, too.
She did. She had sex with the corpse when he was dead. She played 24-year-old woman is being held behind bars after she allegedly killed a man and dismembered him before taunting police that they were going to have fun trying to find all the organs. Like, that's some Hannibal Lecter shit right there.
Oh yeah.
Like, good luck finding all of them.
Is that
she's
a real
fucking-
name? Surely that
Shabusiness,
surname
yeah.
is a real.
That's her name.
Hey,
She's got some business
business.
going on. She's got some business going on.
Yeah, that does sound like they already gave her a witness protection name.
She's accused
It's
of
like just add a little
systematic
asterisk.
stuff.
That's how we know. A little asterisk is when they've changed the name. I was
No,
going to make a
that's
joke
your,
about
I'm
sister
lying
degrees
to
of
a cop.
separation, but
Shop Business told investigators that she did not mean to kill the victim, but as she was choking him, she liked it and she kept doing it. The complaint alleges the victim's identity has not been released. It's been released now, and we'll get to that. We'll come back to that. But there she is. There's Miss Shop Business.
Oof.
ooh.
And there she is.
She
That's
goes
some
to the
Hannibal
brow
Lecter.
bar. That's all I can say. She's got killer eyebrows.
She
I
does.
that just gave me chills just looking at her.
Strong jawline.
She's a very strong jawline. Let's see here if I can find. Shaw Business was taken into custody when police asked her what happened. She says, "That's a good question."
That's fucking high.
In the complaint, prosecutors say Shaw Business told police that she and the victim were together all day Tuesday and had been smoking methamphetamines while having sex. As you do. As you do.
Well, it's, cabin fever in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Ain't
Yeah.
Gone outside.
The complaint also contains graphic details of sexual acts Shaw Business said she did to the victim's body after he died, admitting she played with his body for 2 to 3 hours after his death.
That's about how long it takes to get bored playing with a dead body.
I mean, we were talking about this. Like, how does that work? Like, I get, a dead woman, but how does it work with a dead guy? Like, you need a certain amount of blood flow, right? There's got to be
Right.
like pumping heart there. I don't know how it works, but whatever. Apparently, she found a way.
If you and chest compressions at the same time, you
Maybe.
might be able to get the roll some into where it needs to go.
Maybe. Let's see if I can.
No comment.
Yeah,
Definitely
no,
not.
it's
I have seen enough movies to come up with something, I'm sure.
Well, they just had the guy in the news last week who shoved batteries in his pee hole. You could shove something in there to get it stiff enough to do what you need, right?
Yeah, when my mom worked at a hospital, she worked at the emergency room in the hospital, and there was a guy that came in like at least once a month, he would either have something shoved into his pee hole or something shoved up his, the other end, and he couldn't get it out. So he had to go to the emergency room and have the doctors pull it out.
And by that time, he's got to be good at getting it out. So he's just got to be going further.
You would think so. This is the fella that she murdered. His name is Shad Therion.
These are
I
made up.
I really wish his name was Shad Shabusiness.
No,
that is such a good name. Shad Shabusiness.
He's Shabusiness's mistress. He's the Shabusiness mistress.
So that's many times.
Her husband's name was Warren Shabusiness. Yeah, she's married.
Oh, she married into the Shabusiness.
Married. She married into the Shabusiness. She's got a newborn baby at home too.
No, this is good.
Yeah, so
that's the best thing to happen to a kid. Come on.
And we'll circle back to that a little bit, but
would you rather he grows up with a psychopath that got away with it?
No.
Okay. Those are the two options.
Take it away.
When I showed you this picture, you said, your first reaction was, the gypsies should have told him, or something like that.
The gypsies were.
And I can't get that out of my head, so I was looking up, are there gypsies in Green Bay? Yes, there are. And I'm thinking, is this guy is he a gypsy? Maybe.
He looks like a gypsy. Look how he wears his watch.
Right.
Gypsies don't want you to know they're looking at the time. They put their watch on the bottom.
They're very sneaky.
Yeah.
But like this guy does not look the kind of guy that would hang out with this woman.
He looks like the kind of guy that would do anything she says.
Right. Exactly. Like, not in the same league kind of thing. So I don't know. I don't
This
get
is something that can be easily manipulated. Or maybe that's just the baby face.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
Baby face.
Probably right. But yeah, it's a crazy story. I don't
I
know.
get in the chat about Pam.
You just said that she wasn't in the same league. He wasn't in the same league as her. What, serial killer? He's below that? Was that the insinuation?
Victim is the league. He played it pretty good.
Her Facebook page is still up. Usually Facebook pulls those down, but for some reason they left them up. And her Facebook page is all kinds of red flags. Like if I was that dude, if I was Shad, I would run far and wide. January 13th, went off and told an addict, "I'll never stop buying you dope so I can sit back and watch you die." Like, and this is open for the public, so the comments are just ravaging her. She's got almost 3,000 comments. You can imagine what people are saying.
She's gonna get proposed to by 1 million fans writing letters now.
She will get probation. It's meth up. But yeah, it's a train wreck. It's just, this woman is just batshit crazy, and it's Wisconsin, so
it makes sense.
Look at some of her pictures, like that little.
This is her son. Yeah.
Aww.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sad. I got hitched to show them my commitment, loyalty, and dedication to them. That was that I was never going to be how I used to be. Then they turn around and fuck on me. There's no way I'll ever get in another relationship. So she posted that on January 13th. So apparently she's having some marital difficulties, and maybe that helps send her over the edge. And she did what she did. But who knows?
Expected more stories like this out of the pandemic.
Yeah, you'd think so. You would think so. But, people were avoiding each other. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
People were staying home. They weren't going out doing anything.
You don't want to choke the life out of somebody who may have the COVID.
You
cough it right in your face.
You don't want to get sick. You don't want to get that. You don't get that all over you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you have any other stories this week, Tom? Should we get right into the meat and potatoes?
Oh, let's get right into it. We got plenty of people.
Get right into it. All right. Yeah. So my first question, and this goes out to any of you guys. What draws you into horror? Because I know David Black is primarily a horror filmmaker. What is it about the genre that you guys really like?
Do we just want to jump in?
We'll give that. We'll let Grace go first. Grace, what is it about horror that you?
No, can you repeat again? I didn't get you.
Yeah. What is it about the horror genre that you like?
I think someone else can jump in. I still didn't get you. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
All right, Emma.
Yeah, I actually got into it because all my friends are into it, really. So I started just making short films in general.
If all your
and,
friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it too?
probably. Oh,
It's fun.
depends on if it's a survivable jump. I'd check it.
Well, Tom
I'd
got me.
check if they survived first.
Tom got me into porn. So
But yeah, they all ended up making these films, and it started off just being like some sort of experimental films, or just sort of general drama kind of films. And it just seemed that people were really getting into the horror because they found it fun and interesting. And I had a lot of fun doing a zombie film called The Last Hope, and where we all had all this makeup and it was actually kind of funny because after the film, I was still covered in zombie makeup, so I looked like all zombied and massacred and stuff. Nice. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, I'll just drive home and have a shower. But I was like, oh no, I have to pump some petrol. So I stumbled into the petrol service station, not realizing I was still in zombie makeup. And I was and I'd been exhausted because we were filming all day, right? I was all exhausted and hungry and stuff. And and he was just like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. I feel really hungry. Is there somewhere where there's a burger joint? Because I could really eat some meat. And, and he just went and pointed at the Hungry Jack's across the road. And I was like, thank you. And I just I paid for the petrol and then I left. And I went to the burger joint. And the two girls behind the counter just were looking at me horrified. And that's only then I was they were like, oh, are you okay? Okay. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? And then they were like, because you're covered in blood. And they were like, do you want us to call an ambulance for you or something? And I was like, no. And then I explained to them that about the zombie film that we were making. And I think it's just sort of those little bizarre experiences though, they were just fun. Just every time on a film set is just super exciting. And yeah, I really do I started getting enjoyment out of playing with the fake blood. I actually have my own formula for making fake blood now. That's I use a honey base instead of a sugar base. Which in America, you guys use the high fructose corn syrup sugars and things like that. And I had a few allergies, so I was just I need to make a special one. So I used one with honey, which actually gave it a really kind of nice golden hue. But it's just more the enjoyment of making these films with my friends, that everybody else was into it, that got me into it. Generally, I actually like watching sci-fi a lot more, and I'm a massive Star Wars, Star Trek.
I know. I had a question for you about that too. Star Wars or Star Trek? Which do you prefer?
Oh. That is actually really difficult for me because I really love both a lot. I think more recently though, I have gotten way more into Star Wars, particularly with The Mandalorian and Baby Grogu. And I absolutely love the fact that Mina, who plays Fennec Shard.
Yep.
I just love that they have started having that kind of representation in it, and I think she's absolutely amazing. So I'm a huge fan of hers.
Did you see the Book of Boba Fett?
Yes, I did.
What did you think?
I thought that I agreed with a lot of the fans that it was kind of a little bit the pacing was really off, and it was really weird that they had the bikes, the bright colored bikes that just looked really out of place. And it was it started off really rough. It kind of the storyline kept on meandering and cutting back and forth, and it got to the point where it was slightly confusing, and it wasn't it could have been more coherent at the beginning. And then, of course, Filoni comes in and it turns into The Mandalorian. And then all of a sudden you've got Grogu and R2-D2 in it. And it's like suddenly amazing. And the thing I really love about Filoni is like the film references, of course, being a film buff and being like all into films. So like I just love when he has those iconic moments. And there was that moment where I forgot what the name of the alien is. That the Rancor that was climbing the building like he was King Kong. I was just like, that's awesome. That's exactly why I love. But I totally love his work. It's just those film references.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was an amazing series.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see what's next. So another question is, how has the pandemic hurt you guys over in Australia? And are you guys still up? Are you up and filming now, or is everything back to normal, or are you guys still facing heavy COVID restrictions? Anybody can take that. We'll go with Emma. Emma, how's COVID been hitting you guys over in Australia?
Yeah, I'm probably not as good to speak from the production side of things because I'm not really involved in that. But it has certainly affected a number of events I've meant to be speaking at and panels I've meant to be on. But at the moment, I mean, we're as much back to normal as we've ever been in the last 2 years. And I've got speaking at an event in May, so I'm holding out hope that will happen. Borders are slowly opening. Still travel's gearing up a little bit more. I was meant to go literally in 2020. I was coming across to LA at late April, and of course that went downhill because I was doing research for this Bride of Frankenstein book, and unfortunately that was cancelled, not even postponed really. It ended up that I decided to take the book in a different direction and have a whole lot of contributors rather than just write it myself. So in some ways I think COVID's had us all rewriting the way we do things. Luckily been doing lots of these podcasts, things like this, so that's been great. So we've been able to still link up and be in touch with people and communicate what we love and all that sort of thing. So I think that's the main thing, keep the passion going.
Yeah, the government here in the U.S. lifted all their restrictions, so we don't have mask rules or vaccination rules. So COVID's over. COVID, it's cured. We don't have to worry about it anymore, according to the government.
That's right. Yeah, we still have vaccination rules, I think. But to be totally honest, I just carry a mask with me.
Yeah.
Carry my vax certificate, and whatever I need to do because I kind of threw up my hands in keeping up with rules and regulations, and it was getting a little depressing, I think. So instead I absorbed myself in horror series and horror films, which in some ways seems a bit more optimistic than what we're going through at the moment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think people they had enough. People had enough with all the restrictions too. Like I went to a concert a couple weeks ago. That was vaccination required. You had to show your vax card or a negative test within the past 24 hours. And inside the building, it was masks required, but not one person was wearing a mask. Like nobody wanted to wear a mask. So it was crazy.
Yeah.
It's
the thing. I think that you probably that's the rub. Yeah, it's very sensible, but I'm going to a gig, an international gig next week, and I'm wondering how that's going to be as well, because it's hot in those environments. You've got a lot of people breathing, and exactly the reason why you should be wearing a mask is the reason why you don't want to wear a mask, because you start to feel light of head, and it's not a very pleasant experience. And even trying to talk to someone beside you, no one can hear you. I didn't realize how often I was lip reading in public, like a combination of listening and lip reading when I went into customer service situations or retail situations, because I feel like I've been agreeing to things the whole time through the mask wearing mandate in COVID that possibly have been very strange to say yes to, but it was just like very awkward. And it's also trying to get used to socializing again, slowly getting there.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't think there was a time in 2020 where I don't think I saw anybody for like 6 months other than my family. It was
It's
crazy.
crazy.
It was.
I think getting back into the why we like horror and what you were asking of Vixie, similar to Vixie, I mean, from a very different angle, Vixie's kind of from what I got from what she was talking about is that whole creative aspect of horror. Like horror is probably I love genre cinema anyway, but horror is possibly one of the most creative of the genre cinemas. There's just like but you're dealing with sort of fundamental core things and sort of important stories around the human condition or self-reflective things. I think actually it can be very the subject matter or the actual themes, the core themes of horror are very healthy for people to deal with. But all that often people react to negatively and others not if they can look past it is the theatrics of it. It's just amplifying um, the story in highly creative ways. So, you're taking some things that could be presented as um, just a straightforward drama, but would be far less engaging than the fantastical or the hyper realized environment that horror puts around them. And that always really attracted me. Like I feel like horror is in some ways my religion. That's been my moral
Mhm.
code, strangely to say that. I think a lot of people would think that was weird, but I understand why people don't watch horror too, because depending on how you feel, it can activate very strong emotions in you, and
Yeah.
that can be scary. Like there's been
Mhm.
some times in my life where I've been in a highly anxious state and therefore haven't been comfortable watching horror movies. But originally, I can remember being a kid, like a 4 or 5 year old, and unlike Vixie, it's not because all my friends were into it. I actually got into horror by myself, and my uncle had this book, which is this old UK book by this author called Dennis Gifford. I've actually got it beside me, the pictorial history of horror movies,
Mhm.
and it was basically a whole lot of black and white imagery. I don't think there was even any color, if not maybe one or two color photographs, but it was all these incredibly moody and striking and enthralling imagery from horror movies across the decades. And I
Yeah.
was totally captivated. And not only that, not by the horror as such, like everyone focuses in on this word horror,
Mhm.
but by the actual beauty of these photographs. I mean, these are gorgeous photographs and really interesting human beings that I would never come across in my everyday life. So, that's where, and I think a lot of the times, if our great loves, like we're talking in terms of, pop culture and everything here, and Vixie talking about science fiction and that, most of it comes from an exposure as a kid. I mean, people talk about don't show your kids horror movies. Well, my parents were busy, so
Mhm.
I often got to see things that I possibly shouldn't have seen. But I would say it's put me in good stead. I have learned a lot from them, and I've actually been able to work up a career from it as well. So there you go,
Yeah, absolutely.
parents.
I learned how to survive a night in the woods if I need to. Yeah, I started watching horror films when I was 10. My mom loved horror films and she wanted to go to the theater to see them, but she didn't have anybody to take with. So when I turned 10, I was like her theater buddy. So she took me to all the batshit crazy 80s slasher films. I got to see them in the theater. So I was a pretty lucky kid. But I
Great,
think
yeah,
horror is so subjective. Horror can be anything. What's scary
Mm.
to one person isn't scary to another person. You could take
yeah. You
something
you
so mundane as like
absolutely right.
a child's toy and make it into a terrifying horror film. So that's why I like horror. I mean, it's horror films are fun to make too. They're probably the most fun genre that you can make. Um,
I actually worked in a video store when I was a teenager, and
Me
I
too.
remember playing this. It was a G-rated film. That's general release here in Australia. So basically, the idea is kids can watch a G-rated film. It's not even PG, which is parental guidance here. And I'd always be playing films beside me when I was working there on the TV. And there was a kids section right up the front. So I'm playing this film, this G-rated film, which was called Flirting, actually. It's an Australian film. And then I watched this kid who was, choosing his videos, just transfixed looking at the TV set. And his eyes, his mouth was open, and then all of a sudden he just ran out screaming. And his mother chased after him, and I had a look at what he was looking at, and it was a slow motion boxing scene. So it was like the slow motion impact of the hits, and he just lost it, you know. So this is a G film that censors went, that's fine. There you go. Triggered it in that kid, but
Yeah, I worked at a video store too. That was the best job I ever had. Best job I ever had.
Great. Yeah. I think there was going to be no other job I was going to do. I remember almost taking a job in a bakery, and I had to get up at 5 a.m. or something, and I thought, nah, I'm going to the video shop and asking for a job, and I got it.
No, I worked like 4 p.m. to midnight. It was the best job. I wish. I wish video stores were still around. I never played G films though. I would always play whatever I wanted on our TVs, and I never got in any trouble. Kids in America are pretty tough though. Pretty tough. Let me tell you.
I remember.
Definitely Wisconsin.
In America it's really different. I remember when I was doing my first film degree, so it was a bachelor of screen production, so it's like everything about it. And I was in the library because I always had this thing about horror. Like I couldn't watch it, but like everything about me pointed towards horror because I'm a very emotional person, and like I'm always drawn to like the dark and stuff like that in characters. And I remember reading this book, which is literally like it literally explained what horror was. So like how you're talking about the book your grandfather showed you, Emma, with the pictures. This one, it literally explained there was a way to talk about subjects people weren't comfortable about. Like Rosemary's Baby was about like teenage pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies, and that's why I really, really loved horror, even though I still can't watch it. I'm more in like I can watch psychological horror, but I can't really watch like Hereditary. I couldn't watch after a certain point. I got up to a point where like I don't know if everyone's seen it, but there's a point where it starts getting a bit like Exorcist-y, and I'm like,
the scene with the head in the car. Did you?
It was when no. It was when you just sort of see something go up the wall and like, goodbye, Tony Collette.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that a little bit because I actually have to leave at 1. So, but yeah, I just want to say with horror, I couldn't really watch horror. Like I remember watching The Shining, and I couldn't get the DVD player to get 21 Jump Street to work, so I had to go to bed with The Shining. Just play.
They're two very different films.
Yeah, I was trying to go for it. I'm like, something scary, something not scary. I just ended up going to bed with The Shining playing in my head after I watched it.
Well, that's okay. It's okay. Shining wasn't too bad, was it?
I don't know what it was about that at the time, but I was like, I don't know. It was just creepy, but in a good way, because like it does talk about the whole isolation and stuff like that, which I found is very applicable to like lockdown as well, because Nicholson, instead of being in this fantastic hotel and being a writer, you're stuck in lockdown, and you're not vaccinated yet, so you can't go anywhere.
Did you ever see the documentary? I think it's called Room 221. The kind of all the hidden meanings behind that movie, behind The Shining, although like the hidden little visuals that Stanley Kubrick put in there. It's fascinating. It's just utterly fascinating. Like the real meaning behind The Shining.
I kind of thought it was a little bit too much. Wasn't there something that was like the breasts of a woman in the mountains or something like that? And it's like, well, there's a breast of a woman in every mountains, really.
Yeah.
It was kind of a very strange correlation to make. I thought there was some long bows that were drawn, let's say.
Yeah, it's trippy, you know, and I can never watch The Shining again without thinking about that, because it's it gets really deep. So what are some of your guys' favorite films? I mean, do you like watching horror or just making it? What are some of your favorite films?
Mostly I love all of the horror films. The one reminds me a lot. I think that one is called Devil Inside. That one is really terrible. Yeah, it's really, really horror. Yeah.
What was
Do you
that
remember
called
that
again,
one?
Grace?
Devil Inside.
Oh,
Inside.
okay.
Inside, yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Yeah, that one, very scary.
Oh,
It's
Vixie's just
not
gone.
okay. So yeah, that one is not just the makeup, it's also the psychological. So makes you feel just makes you feel very scary. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I saw that in the theater, and
yeah.
yeah, that was a pretty scary movie. Emma, what about you? What kind of movies do you like?
Um, I
Well,
like the
I can
kind of
imagine with who you work for. I mean, I can imagine what movies you like. But
yeah, I like the full range of stuff. So a lot of the movies that I work with or talk about classed as classic cinema, classic cult cinema, or cult and or classic cinema. So I was doing a radio show where I was talking about new releases for a while here for a few years, but it's been really nice to just be able to indulge in all the stuff that now that actually now is quite a sweet time because things are becoming much more easily available. I mean, when the video shop days, it was like you'd find something, I don't know, at a certain video shop and go and rent it heaps of times or do a dodgy dub of it or something like that. And it was a nice feeling because it was kind of like owning that film and these incredible discoveries. Now it's not so much, it's not about finding those gems. It's about seeing as much as you can and finding things that were previously never available. Like, I've written books about one film that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago because why write about one old film and you have to wait for it to crop up on TV to watch it, right? So in this way, people can now access things really easily, and there's a lot of stuff that I haven't seen that I've got to see. But the physical whole thing about working on beautiful physical media releases is, I think we're discovering now that stuff is there for. It's we've got this assumption, but it's changing that everything's there for the taking on streaming services, and they might be there one moment and then they disappear. And also, there's a whole lot of stuff that's curation around what what is seen as socially or politically correct now, that there's a lot of shit that's gone down in film that doesn't ride well with people these days. But guess what, that was okay in the time, and I think that there's a place for those films as well, because people need to understand through those films they get a window into the time as well, and that maybe we weren't always so tolerant. It's funny to think that we're tolerant now, but people talk about tolerance, and it's good to see that the way I don't know, a woman was presented in a horror movie in the 60s, for example, very different. So for example, I love Hammer horror films, and there's a lot of talk about women being objectified in Hammer horror films and things like that, but it was just what it was of the time. It's accepting things, and getting a window into a different aesthetic, a different way of thinking. um, it's really interesting. But to pick a film, I mean, we've been talking about Devil Inside and things like that. We're sort of talking about more the and the Exorcist and that, and Rosemary's Baby. So they're all very paranormal sort of well, devil possession and stuff. So they all have sort of a faith leaning, So someone like, which I love, like the Exorcist is, people talk about the Exorcist all the time, but there's a reason why, because it is such an enduring classic, even though it's been parodied so much. But even the parodying is the proof of why it's so, it's so important. You need to be basically be a pop cultural icon or whatever, in order to then be parodied. Otherwise, no one knows what you're talking about. But writing a book about David Cronenberg's The Fly, for example, Cronenberg will never touch anything that has anything to do with religious possessions or a religious state, ghosts and the paranormal, because he doesn't believe in that. He's an atheist. So he will only, that's why he's become this famous for his body horror, because he said it's all about the human state for him and human psychology, not about paranormal. But I can watch the full gamut of horror movies, and I find if something great in all types, just as long as they're well made and a bit interesting and, you know, good stories, good storytelling. That's what it comes down to.
I'd say just because I've got to go in about 9 minutes. What's your opinion on Shudder then, the streaming service specifically for horror?
Me?
Yeah.
I really like Shudder, I have to admit. I'm all for it. I've been very supportive of it because I want it. I want more of that sort of stuff, you know. A horror exclusive channel is really exciting to me. It's just when I see, I mean, American Shudder is much better than the Australian Shudder. Like, we're still geo-blocked on a lot of things, and you guys probably aren't aware of that in the States, but we do have a lot of restrictions here in Australia. We have to get around a lot more walls in order to access content. But what I think about the problem, the one problem I see with Shudder is when I look at the posters or the graphics, right, for each movie, they all look the same to me. There's no variation in the presentation or the PR of these films, which I think is a bit disappointing, you know, because it doesn't show, for want of a better phrase, the light and shade of the different horror movies, you know, because not all horror movies have the same feel. But if you go and you look at the, you know, the little promos for something on Shudder, you'll think you're watching the same movie over and over again.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a question for you. You know, we're speaking about physical media. You might know, when is Dawn of the Dead going to get a physical release here in America?
Haven't you guys, I know, because Second Sight did a beautiful release of it in the UK. Yeah, so that hasn't been picked up in the States at all by Scream Factory or Shout Factory? No, nothing like that?
Nothing. Nope.
I'm not sure.
I didn't get a chance to get an order in, and now it's going for like 3 times the retail price on the secondhand market.
That film, that release with Second Sight, it's amazing because you think, I mean, I have Dawn of the Dead on VHS, you know. There's been so many different releases of it over time, but I know from Chris, who runs Second Sight, that that was by far the most buzz they got on social media when they put out that release. Huge. It went gangbusters. But do you know what was the second biggest release they had? And this might surprise you. It was an Australian film. I actually worked on this release too, called Lake Mungo. Have you ever seen that film?
Yeah.
Well, you've probably doubled, you seeing it is probably, and if Tom had seen it, has probably doubled the audience it had in Australia.
Really?
No one saw it in Australia. Wow. The film, I think, took about $8,000 at the box office and didn't get a very good release. Yet it required an overseas audience to pick up on it, and then it became kind of this underground thing. The filmmaker only made one film, that one, and he's kind of gone to ground and disappeared. I think it's a sensational horror movie, and it's truly scary. Like, it's one of the moodier films I've come across, but it's a pure example of how there's a cultural cringe in Australia where we don't seem to support our own work enough. And I don't know what the other participants here, they probably have a very strong perspective on it because they're all making independent horror films, and it's very, very hard to get a release. In fact, I've talked to other even film commentators here, and I've got friends making horror films in Australia who my friends have just said, don't bother with getting a distribution in Australia, go straight overseas, because it's just not going to be worth it here, which is a shame. It's a real shame.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know that filmmakers here in America have problems too. A lot of them go with Amazon or Netflix, but the payments are just pennies now. You used to be able to make really good money on Amazon if you put your streaming on Amazon. You can make decent money, but now they cut it so much. You make pennies. It's not even.
Yeah.
So I think self-distribution is the way that these indie filmmakers in America are going. They're making their own DVDs and Blu-rays, and they're going to conventions, and that's how they're getting the word out. That's all.
Yeah, and doing VOD releases and things like that, or special sort of fan screenings and stuff like that.
Yeah, we have a lot of genre film festivals here too. Tom and I run a film festival here in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Twisted Dreams Film Festival, and that seems to be pretty popular. Genre film festivals are pretty popular and getting more popular here in the States. I don't know if you guys have any genre film festivals in Australia.
We do. We have there's one called in Melbourne called Monster Fest that usually occurs around in November. In fact, Sarah's I know that Cult Girls that Sarah was the lead in. That was one of a big release during a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago, Sarah, at Monster Fest. That was we have a couple of little ones here and there, but in general, like I'm part of, or I contribute regularly to a group called Cinemaniacs here in Melbourne, who do regular screenings of sort of repertory stuff and a lot of horror stuff. They tend to do a lot of horror stuff, but there's just still it's just the force of numbers in the US, and I think are quite a pop culturally hungry audience. So Melbourne's very good. Melbourne's got some great creatives. Quite surprising, a lot of film commentators who are working internationally as well, who the people in Melbourne wouldn't even know it was happening. But I was surprised. I remember when I did my first book was on monster movies, and it was all of my books have been published through the UK, not through Australia or the States. So there's been sort of a rolling release. It tends to be the UK first, then Australia, then the US. And as soon as it hits the US, that's when all the excitement happens. That's when,
Nice.
and the connection with some real fans. And this is the thing that I've also noticed with horror. I mean, people have this idea that, oh, you're into horror, you must be a nutcase or something like that. I have only met the loveliest, kindest, sweetest, warmest people through horror. And I don't know whether do you guys know he's a filmmaker called Jamie Blanks. He did the Urban Legend film, the first Urban Legend. So he directed Urban Legend, which, had everyone in it. Tara Reid, Jared Leto, all of that crew in the 90s. And then he did Valentine with David Boreanaz in about 2000 or 2001. They were very big horror releases. And Jamie is just like a sweetheart. Like, Jamie is a total teddy bear and just will do anything for you, and loves movies, just loves movies and loves horror movies. And he used to make, when he was a teenager in the 80s, he used to make on the weekend little gore special effects films, basically just playing with blood and playing with mincing people or shredding people through meat grinders and hitting people with cards,
as you do,
things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago we had an Australian on, Dean Bertram. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but I think he lived in Melbourne. He ran a few genre film festivals. Now he lives in Wisconsin, go figure, and he runs Midwest Weird Fest genre film festival. So
okay, that's great.
Yeah, he lives in Wisconsin now, so who knows? He might be dismembering somebody right now, for all I know.
Something in the water, as you said.
Something in the water, yeah. There's something in the water. I don't know what it is.
I just want to quickly say some of my favorite horror films, just because it was a really great conversation. I really want to be a part of this one. I've got something that's at 120. I'm like, But I looked up like Mungo while you were talking about it, and I've got the IMDb up, and I was like, wow. So I'm gonna go look at that later. But that definitely, because
please do.
Because when you did Badass Bunyip, like, I had to do this Bogan accent, and it was quite. I'd never done a Bogan accent before in my life.
Bogans, I know what a Bogan.
Yeah, you know what that is.
I know
look up Badass. That's with David, the Badass Bunyip. That was the. So he called it, like, it was like an Indigenous revenge film or Australian horror film. or an Aboriginal horror film because of the use of the spirits and getting their back on the white bogans and just trashing their lands.
With the Southern Cross, did you have a Southern Cross tattoo in it? I have to go and have a look at the film.
David has like a tattoo of some kind, and he had like a big mullety hair wig. It was
the mullet. Do you know what know what a mullet is, guys? Do you? Yeah.
Short
business up front, party out the back.
We created a mullet.
I don't know about that. Australia's had some pretty epic mullets.
So I know that there's, and Bogans don't like the Aborigines, right? The Aboriginal people, do they not get eye to eye? See, I've got some friends that live in Alice Springs, so I hear all about it. But I couldn't cast that wide a net. Who knows? But it's always there's. I don't think you could describe Bogan culture, Australian Bogan culture, in 5 minutes or something. I got a friend. I got a friend named Boyd that he explains it to me very well. Very well.
Did he?
Oh my God! Great. They wear trucker caps apparently.
Yes. Southern Cross tattoos, what I was talking about, that always makes me think of, that's a very Bogan thing. So if you look at the Australian flag, it's got the Union Jack, which is obviously the British thing, and then it's got Southern Cross of stars. So there's a thing where, people get Southern Cross tattoos of the stars on there, wherever they choose to go. I've seen quite a few on men's calves. Yeah. I feel like we're getting back into the dismemberment here, but
but that's okay.
Well, actually, in one of the films, it was The Loved Ones.
Oh yeah, that's a great film. I love that film.
I remember watching it and it's stuck in my brain forever. And Cargo, the original.
Cargo's excellent. Yeah. There's two great Australian films. People to look. Yeah. Cargo's a zombie film, guys. So
it's like it's so good. It's so good. It's really like you watch it, you understand what I mean. It's just the feels.
At the end, it's got without spoiling anything, it's got a very heartfelt end. And it also starts right in some people on a holiday, a houseboat on a river, and it's almost like
with that one. The one I watched was the original The Trop Fest one.
Oh yeah, the short. Yeah. So this is
that's how it got me. I haven't watched the new one yet, but yeah.
Oh no, you'll like it. No, it's great. You'll really like it. So they developed it really well.
That's good. Because I was like, oh. So I always recommend the Trop Fest one.
That was a short film festival in Australia where they it got quite prestigious, but it also sort of became a whole lot of people with a lot of resources, like even sort of more well-known actors and advertising people who had access to a lot of equipment, making stuff and kind of dominating it. But it had a good it had a good reason for starting. It sort of just went a little bit off the rails and became a little less accessible for people at one stage.
Could you say it went a little proper?
Yeah, when it was perfect. I like that, Anastasia. I like the way you're thinking.
Okay, well, I've got to go now, but thank you so much for having me on. And next time I will definitely stay long.
Absolutely. So on that note, we can wrap things up. But I'm very proud of myself because I understand most of the references you guys were talking about today. So I feel like I can move to Australia and I can fit right in, just like Hogs. Just like Hogs. Paul Hogan. Right? I was waiting to say Hogs because I know that.
You've got to get the nice flat Australian vowel. Hogs.
Hogs.
Yeah.
I thought about it and had to clear my throat.
Hogs. Through the nose, flat.
We'll work on it. We'll be ready for the next time.
Sarah and Grace have got much nicer ways of saying it than me. I've got the Australian accent. They've got lovely international accents.
Yes, and our thinkings are international as well.
You bring a new perspective into Melbourne.
Okay.
All right. On that note, I guess it's time to wrap things up. Thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. This was a fun chat. Very fascinating. Like I said,
Thanks, guys.
I feel like I could move to Australia and I'd fit right in. So thanks. Join us next week. We'll be back with another live show.
Woo.